Boxing.
Beats and rhymes.
No one
Can do it better.
Ricky Hatton turned pro in 1997, ran up a record of 38-0. 2005, he challenged Costa Zoo for the IBF World Super Lightweight title and stopped him in 11 in a sold-out MEN Arena, Manchester. Went on to become a two-weight champion, controversially outscoring Luis Collazo over 12 in Boston to claim the welterweight WBA title. He dropped back down to light welter. The left hook body shot finish against Jose Luis Castillo was very impressive before he took on Floyd Mayweather for the WBC welterweight title and was stopped in 10 rounds in the MGM Grand Las Vegas. Ricky was a good fighter, but in another ring, in a more neutral location perhaps, he may have been disqualified against Costa Zoo. Headbutts, rabbit punches, low blows, elbows. But Costa Zoo was the one who was penalised a point before he sat it out at the end of the 11th round, which he came in for a lot of criticism. A lot of people thought that he should have battled on until the end, but that was Costa Zoo's last fight. But it was a good win. It was a great win. Despite having Luis Collazo down in the first round when he challenged for the WBA welterweight title, it looked like Collazo outboxed him pretty soundly behind that southpaw stance. Ricky got the decision. After he fought Mayweather, he had the big comeback fight at the City of Manchester Stadium against Juan Lezcano. Ricky was hurt on a couple of occasions and hurt badly in the 10th. When he was hurt, they allowed Ricky to tie his shoelaces up, giving him vital time to recover and win a unanimous decision. Frank Warren also kept him away from a domestic showdown with Junior Witter, who Frank also promoted. Ricky was a very good fighter. He showed that against Mayweather. Actually gave Mayweather a tough fight. But Ricky was a privileged fighter, a very talented fighter. And he likely didn't have nothing to do with the Juan Lezcano fight. But it was as blatant a fixed fight as you will ever see in any boxing ring anywhere at any time. I can't do a candy floss appraisal of his boxing career. I can't do that. It wouldn't be me if I did that. I've been as truthful as possible. A great body puncher. Boxing skills a little underrated. Great at cutting off the ring. Very quick feet when he was cutting down the space between him and his opponent. Sometimes fought away from the game plan and tried to please the crowd too much and got caught more often than Billy Graham would have liked. But when he was with Billy Graham, he was an excellent fighter. Wins over Jonathan Faxton, Eamon McGee, that was a good win. Ricky got off the canvas. Vince Phillips, old veteran. Ben Tacky, Ray Oliveira, these are good fighters. Costa Zoo, Carlos Mauser, who just came off the win against Vivian Harris. Ricky became a unified champion on that occasion and was named Ring Magazine's Fighter of the Year 2005. The Juan Arango fight was a little, not controversial, but I think Ricky started showing signs of slippage in that fight. Then he knocked out Luis Castillo, great body shot. There's some of his best wins. Ricky lost his last two fights between 2009 and 2012. The Senchenko fight was an ill-advised comeback 3 years after Pacquiao knocked him out badly. This was after his issues with cocaine and alcohol were all well known to the public. Ricky's vices, his years of yo-yo dieting had finally caught up with him, left his skills eroded. Rumoured to have took 20 to 30,000 fans across the pond to Las Vegas when he fought Mayweather. They didn't all attend the fight, but it was a pro-Ricky Hatton crowd in the arena. Not sure that will be matched by any fan base from any fighter. When you're talking about Ricky, you're talking about popularity amongst guys like Freddie Mills, Henry Cooper, Frank Bruno, Billy Walker, AJ, Tyson Fury. He's in that club. So today we're finding out that Ricky was found hanging on the 14th of September. Taking his own life is what was heard at a coroner's court. The 46-year-old was discovered unresponsive by his manager, Paul Speak. From accounts of family members on September the 12th, he was in good spirits. He was supposed to be in Dubai the next day for a press engagement for a fight he had scheduled over there, an exhibition. His manager went to his house, I believe, to fly Ricky over to Dubai, where he was found unresponsive. Family members did not turn up to the coroner's hearing, and his manager spoke on behalf of the family. Rest in peace, Ricky.
Boxing.
Beats and rhymes.
No one
Can do it better. I'm so confused. Damn.
Boxing fans, boxing media. So, from what I'm hearing from boxing fans and media, are a confused bunch. So, recently, we've had Moses Atoma ordered to fight Kubrat Pulev for the regular WBA belt. We have Rolly Romero beating Ryan Garcia, becoming full WBA champion, even though there was an interim champion before Rolly beat Ryan Garcia. Should the interim guy not have been elevated to full champion? Or at least been given a shot to fight for it? Before Rolly, before Ryan, before Manny. Now the WBA have ordered the interim champion Gayasov to fight Rolly, which might scupper the plans between Pacquiao and Rolly. Haven't heard much complaints from certain sections of media and boxing fans bitching and moaning about Moses Atoma versus Pulev is not a good fight, although Pacquiao hasn't won a fight since 2019. Then you're complaining about Ben Whittaker fighting Gavassi for the WBC silver title. Isn't this a belt that loads of fighters have used as a path towards getting a title shot? So Whittaker should blow the fight off because you're not happy with the opponent. That's what he should do. And that's what Moses should do. He should take on Frank Sanchez. Well, hasn't Moses got an option because he's ranked by the IBF and the WBA? He's got an option of who he fights. You wanted this system, and because Moses is using the system and perhaps choosing the lesser of two evils, you're unhappy. But trust me, if Moses gets past Pulev, which is a very good fight for a 20-year-old with a mere 13 fights, it's an excellent fight. If Moses gets past Pulev, there's no turning back, right? Once he's on the championship ladder, there's no more easy fights, so to speak. You guys have opted for the sanctioning belts. Well, there's 4 sanctioning belts. You can't complain which route the fighters are taking and what belts they're fighting for on their path to get world title shots. How are you going to complain when this is the system you're opting for? You don't want to give the TKO Dana White Turkey thing a chance because you're looking out for the welfare of the boxers apparently. Although the UBO is just another option for the boxers to seek opportunities along with the sanctioning belts. That's all it is. People have made a deal about this that it's not. There's one guy on Twitter who's become extremely popular. This is how boxing works. Going around telling people that boxers are doing just fine. Don't touch the Muhammad Ali yet. Boxers are doing just fine. Yeah, walking away from the ring with no purse, with their ticket deals. And they do them across the pond as well. Either zero ped testing or inadequate ped testing. All the major networks gone. If it wasn't for DAZN, a British-based company, how much regular boxing would America be broadcasting at World Championship level? Dan Raphael wants to make up noise about Boots Ennis fighting Lima to become the WBA interim champion. He didn't once mention that Lima was ranked in 3 sanctioning bodies. And according to Eddie Hearn, Sergei Boychuk turned down 7 figures to fight Boots. Keith Thurman turned down the fight. Thurman's denying it, but he denied he turned down the Crawford fight when Crawford was on top rank. I'm confused with boxing fans and media. I'm very confused. Extremely confused.
I'm so confused. Damn.
A championship boxer will have enough tough fights. If they have 10 championship fights or so, they will have enough tough fights to give them all the CTE, TBIs, PTSDs, and all the other funky acronyms to deal with when their careers are done, so you can forget all about them like Magomed Abdul Salamov. The only way to avoid all this who's ducking is to change the structure. The structure has to be more uniformed, more official, more competition structured than what we're seeing now. This 4-belt system is not working for what you say you want. Boxing fans I'm talking about. Only an ignorant motherfucker would fail to acknowledge if you want to rip fighters off, you would not go through federal law to do so.
This is how it should be done.
But what I've noticed is some of you boxing fans, and some of you are listening, and some of you media, you want boxing to go a certain way. And when it doesn't, and you've got to consider alternatives, which Turkey is coming up with Dana, you shut it down. But at the same time, you probably expect Turkey to keep dipping into the pot and putting on these stacked up cards, which they're obviously losing money on. Then some of you had the nerve to say, Well, they're putting on the TKO card so they can pay the fighters little and take big profits from the advertising revenue and the Paramount Network, etc., for rights fees and so on. So they should just put on the cards at a loss and not consider the loss. The nerve of that shit. Boxing fans and media. The nerve of that shit. The boxers are signed to promoters. The promoters have matchmakers. There's a game plan here. And if they're all fighting for different promotional companies, you expect boxers to not play their part in the team and start complaining about who the WBA or WBC put forward to fight them for the silver belt or the regular belt. Is that what you expect them to do? All the boxer and the trainer see is this guy's a southpaw. He's 16-1, he's 16-0. Can we get some tape to study and figure out how to try and win the flipping fight? When they have a network, when they have a promotional outlet that are working to a game plan, when they don't control the rankings that are putting up the challenges for WBC silvers, WBA regulars, etc. Why is everyone so selective on what fighter they don't like, coming down hard on Boots Ennis? You should be fighting a better standard of opponent. Well, who did Virgil Ortiz fight in his 154 debut? People talking about Boots avoided Terence Crawford. Well, so did Virgil Ortiz, and the WBO sold him out as well. Why are some of you so selective? Why do you guys go on witch hunts on certain fighters when it's popular to do so? Why are the likes of Dan Raphael doing media but didn't break down a combination that Boots Ennis threw in his fight with Lima? All he wanted to do is trash the match that the WBA ordered. The boxers are fighting in a flawed system. And that includes Tank Davis. And I don't like some of the decisions Tank has made, but they're fighting in a flawed system that is set up to be manipulated by broadcasters, promoters, with envelopes being passed down at the table. If Moses, Boots, or Ben Whittaker make a habit of cherry picking the worst fighters they can fight, chasing regular belts and interim belts, saying they're world champions, I'll be the first to stand up and say this is whack.
That shit is whack.
There's a lot of politics in boxing. Now TKV is pulled out. They're talking about Michael Webster, who lost twice to Solomon Dakers, might be fighting Fraser Clark for the British title. Is that acceptable? I don't know. But they got to keep Fraser Clark active, and Ben Shalom's doing what he has to do. As far as I'm concerned, I'm just happy that Boots, Fraser Clark, Moses, and Ben Whittaker are on the path to being active. They need to be active. We need to keep these fighters active. But with a 4-belt system and all these promotional outlets, what else would you expect? Everyone's protecting their investments. What else would you expect? All the promoters are looking out for their own interests, which Turkey has tried to eliminate from boxing. But that's what they're doing. Got the fighters playing risk-reward. The sanctioning bodies try to blur the lines. This is from the WBA's webpage. When Pulev fought Manuel Char late last year, they didn't bill it as the regular title. They just billed it as the heavyweight championship. Even if a boxer wants to please the fan, the politics and obstacles in his way.
It's impossible.
If Ben Whittaker don't fight for that WBC silver belt, someone else will. And they'll get ranked. If Moses Atoma don't fight Pulev for that regular belt, someone else will. And they'll take that high position in the heavyweight rankings. If Boots didn't fight Lima, someone else would do it. And someone else would be interim champion. It's as simple as that. Flawed system.
Another nigga caught up in the system.
A lot of the traffic in terms of fighters seems like it's heading over to the zone, and that's not a bad thing. I thought Makhmudov was a top-ranked fighter. Eddie Hearn was saying that he's got options on Makhmudov after he beat Dave Allen. So they must have worked out some deal of co-promotion with Top Rank. Keyshawn Davis, is he heading over to Matchroom? It's been rumoured. Still got a few months on his contract. Apparently Matchroom are prepared to buy out the remainder of his contract. His first few fights were on Matchroom. Could be more trouble than Eddie Hearn wants to deal with. Didn't look good against that Albright kid in 2023. Then he popped for marijuana. His win was turned over to a no contest. Missed the weight by how much? 4 pounds for the Del Santos defense of the WBO title. Surrendered his title without a punch being thrown. I'll bypass the brawl he was supposed to have had with Albright, the same opponent he popped for marijuana, and was said to have had a brawl with Albright and his entourage after Keyshawn's brother Kelvin lost a majority decision to him. I'll bypass that because nobody was hospitalized, nobody was hurt, no charges pressed. And he announced his retirement recently. Retirement is so peaceful. I can imagine Hearn really wants to sign Keyshawn because despite all that, he's extremely talented. And at 140, the weight class he should be fighting at anyway. If he's motivated and dedicated, it could ease Eddie's recent disappointments, like Shakur not extending his contract and Richardson Hitchens not extending his contract. Many would argue that Keyshawn is better than Shakur, better than Richardson, and definitely more crowd-pleasing. So Eddie might be prepared to break the bank to land that signing. I would love to see Richardson Hitchens and Keyshawn. Or Keyshawn versus Shakur, but don't they have some type of bromance where they're not going to fight each other?
Boxing.
Beats and rhymes.
No one can do it better.
17th of October, Kieran Conway defends his British and Commonwealth titles at 160 against George Liddard from Billericay, Essex or West Ham? I don't know. Liddard has a record of 12-0-0, 7 inside the distance. Kieran Conway, the more experienced boxer, 23-3-1, 7 inside the distance. He's 5'11", 29 years of age. George Liddard is 23 years of age, 5'10". Now, this is a very good contest for the British and Commonwealth titles at the York Hall. I was actually thinking about getting a ticket, but everything's gone. It's all sold out. Frank Smithy was saying it's going to be good to hold it in the York Hall. They could have put it in the Copper Box, but there'd be a lot of empty seats. But they want to get it in a nice compact arena where it's going to be full. The atmosphere is going to be live, and it will be. It will be. Kieran from Northampton, the outsider. It should be a pro-Liddard crowd. Now, this is the first time Matchroom have been in the York Hall since 2019. Richard Riakporhe versus Jack Massey. Is this a result of the Saudi bag and the Saudi money and the British boxing events going over to Saudi, where the likes of a George Liddard hasn't been able to develop his profile because there hasn't been no big headliners for him to be on the undercards of? So in the meantime, like last year, he had to fight on top tier promotions, which I'm sure, if you ignore the paperwork, is a cut and paste job by Tony Sims and Eddie to keep Matchroom fighters like George Liddard and Jimmy Sains busy. But nevertheless, it's a good matchup. I believe Liddard will take a close points verdict, should be able to outbox and punch hard enough to convince the judges to score it his way. I think he's physically strong enough to withstand Kieran's abrasive, rough style of boxing. I'm not sure if Kieran has the quality to retain his belts, but I could be wrong. But I'm going to pick for George Liddard. Close, perhaps controversial decision.
Boxing.
Beats and rhymes.
No one can do it better.